In the last week, there were some really interesting conversations happening about libraries. If you follow me on Facebook, and if you don't follow me on Facebook, why don't you? You should. Link in the downstairs. And you know how much I love libraries. It's kind of ridiculous. This opinion is going to be incredibly biased, which opinions generally are, but I digress. Ariel Bisset, she and her friend, I forget his name, they talked about how they had just gotten a library card and how they probably wouldn't use it. How she prefers to buy brand new books and to hold them and have them on her shelf and to keep them, as opposed to borrowing used books from the library. In the comment section, she was lambasted by quite a few people who said that she was speaking from a very privileged point of view. Lena from Just Kiss My Frog made a video, and she talked about how the library is kind of a dying breed at this point, and that if you could afford to go out to the cinema and etc., then you can afford a book. And okay, Fran from Frandolph the Grey, she talked about libraries from the perspective of a young person who thinks that more young people should become involved in the library so that it can evolve. And she talked about ways that the library can evolve from where it was before to what it looks like it's becoming today. Let me tell you about my perspective of the library. I can't even remember when I got my first library card. I remember being in middle school and spending a lot of time in the library, just in the school itself. At that time, I was really into Nancy Drew, and the library had the hardback copies of Nancy Drew, you know, the old school ones from like the 60s or so. And I borrowed every single book that that library had to offer that was Nancy Drew. That was my jam. After school in maybe the 8th or 9th grade, going from the school to the public library and staying there until close several times per week. That was a habit that continued for a long time. And then after I graduated from high school, as an undergraduate, I worked in the university library. I worked at the reference floor, and I worked on interlibrary loan. If you're looking for a particular book and your library doesn't happen, but within the system that it's connected to, another library does, then you can get the book from there. And it's lovely. And it keeps a flow of information going. So that was interesting. After school, I worked at a public library for about 2 years. I consider myself to be pretty knowledgeable about libraries. I worked in different areas, different types, and I spent a lot of time in them. I think that younger people aren't as involved in libraries as they once were. And I sometimes wonder if they ever really were. Even when I was young and I was going to libraries all the time, it's not like that was the happening spot where people went. You know, it was a place for quiet reflection and study and such. And most of the time when I would be at the library, there would be people milling about, but they weren't necessarily my age when I was a teenager or in junior high. When I was in my undergraduate, yeah, there was college students all over the place because that was part of survival. Libraries, in order to be effective, have to be more than just an information hub. With the advent of the internet and people being able to access so many points and sources of information, the info hub aspect of the library tends to seem as though it's less necessary. I would not agree that it's less necessary. In fact, I think that there are times when going to the library and speaking to an actual librarian helps tremendously, especially if you are looking for information and you don't quite know where to start, or you can't find that information easily. For instance, if you are doing some type of project about a small town and you need to know vital statistics about that small town, you might not be able to find it via Google, but your local librarian might be able to point you in the right directions for some documents that either the library has or would be in the city hall, etc., etc. Okay. The library to me operates more as a hub for the community. The public library that I worked with would have monthly book sales that were always well attended, and we had children's events that there would be kids all over the place on a Saturday morning. There was also book reads for kids, and a lot of it was geared towards children. That is where that library had its strongest point for bringing in new people, having kids programs. And I think that's smart, because my love for libraries started when I was young, and it's never left me. I think that if you introduce the library to kids, get them involved, get them interested, teach them that there's more to it than just dusty books. Like, there's things that happen there, and there's stuff that you might be interested in. I think that's important. So libraries, in order to be able to survive, have to find ways, creative ways, to engage with the community. I do believe that younger generations should patron the library, and they should volunteer, and they should try it out and see if there's programs that are happening, or even if something isn't happening there and you have an idea, talk to someone and see if that's something that could happen. However, I do understand that there are people who are more than just book readers. They are book collectors. And for someone who is a book collector, and that is a part of what makes them happy, then perhaps borrowing books isn't part of their lifestyle. And that's okay. I feel as though the term privileged is used way too often in these Tumblr days, and there's often an extremely negative connotation toward having privilege. We all have some type of privilege. Some of us have more than others. Some of us have way more than others. Acknowledging that you have that privilege is important. Also, not shaming someone else for having privilege is also important. If someone doesn't want to use the libraries, or only uses them for going on the internet or printing off copies, is that a bad thing? The beauty of the library, at least in the US, is that it is available as a free resource for people who want to use it. And to me, that says that regardless of how much money you may or may not have, you have access to something that could help you immensely. So if you're falling on hard times and you need to print out resumes, you could do that at the library. If you need help with an assignment, if you need a quiet place to read some fiction, if you just need an opportunity to browse books and not to feel awkward because maybe today you can't pay for a book, but you still want to read, that's fantastic. That's what they're there for. In addition to these other things that happen. Now, the biggest way that I patronize my local library is through the Overdrive, which is the program that allows me to check out ebooks from the comfort of my home at any time of the day. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I can rent new books. I can borrow new books. That's fantastic. And because I am terrible at remembering to bring back books on time. Even though I love libraries, I'm really bad at it and I always have been. My mom still gives me crap for this book that I borrowed from the 6th grade that I forgot to take back, and it cost her $20 some to replace. When if we talk about library finds, that book comes up and she remembers it and gives me the stink eye. 6th grade. Come on. It was a cheerleading book. So I was just trying to edit this video and I realized that the camera turned off at the end. So here I am right before bed and edit it while I'm editing to finish that story. So getting books on Google Overdrive, the ebooks are returned automatically, so I don't have to remember to do anything. And I think you can set it to up to 21 days. So in day 22, if I haven't returned it, it takes it back, no fines. That, my friend, is outstanding. So please join me down in the comments. Tell me about your library experiences. Tell me about the libraries that you have in your area. Do you use them? Do you use Google Overdrive? What do you think libraries should do to become more of a fixture in our communities? Let me know. Become part of this conversation. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.